Larysa Petrivna Kosach-Kvitka, better known under her literary pseudonym Lesya Ukrainka, was one of Ukraine's best-known poets and writers and the foremost woman writer in Ukrainian literature. She also was a political, civil, and feminist activist. Biography. Ukrainka was born in 1871 in the town of Novorad-Volhynsky of Ukraine. She was the second child of Ukrainian writer and publisher Olha Drahomanova Kosach, better known under her literary pseudonym Larysa Petrivna. Ukrainka's father was Petro Antonovich Kosach, head of the District Assembly of Conciliators, who came from the northern part of Chernihiv province. After completing high school in Chernihiv Gymnasium, Kosach studied mathematics at the University of Petersburg. 2 years later, he moved to Kyiv University and graduated with a degree in law. In 1868 he married Olha Drahomanova, who was the sister of his friend Mikhailo Petrovich Drahomanov, a well-known Ukrainian scientist, historian, philosopher, folklorist and public figure. Despite his non-Ukrainian background, Kosach was devoted to the advancement of Ukrainian culture and financially supported Ukrainian publishing ventures. Ukrainka had 3 younger sisters, Olha, Oksana, and Isidora, and a younger brother, Mykola. Ukrainka was very close to her uncle Drahomanov, her spiritual mentor and teacher, as well as her brother Mikhailo, known under the pseudonym Mikhailo Obashny, whom she called Myzolozy. Lesya inherited her father's features, eyes, height, and build. Like her father, she was highly principled, and they both held the dignity of the individual in high regard. Despite the many similarities, Lesya and her father were different in that her father had a gift for mathematics, but no gift for languages. On the contrary, Lesya had no gift for mathematics, but she knew English, German, French, Italian, Greek, Latin, Polish, Russian, Bulgarian, and her native Ukrainian. Lesya's mother, a poet, wrote poetry and short stories for children in Ukrainian. She was also active in the women's movement and published a feminist almanac. Ukrainka's mother played a significant role in her upbringing. The Ukrainian language was the only language used in the household, and to enforce this practice, the children were educated by Ukrainian tutors at home, in order to avoid schools that taught Russian as the primary language. Ukrainka learned how to read at the age of 4, and she and her brother Mikhailo could read foreign languages well enough to read literature in the original. By the time she was 8, Ukrainka wrote her first poem, Hope, which was composed in reaction to the arrest and exile of her aunt, Larysa Kosach, for taking part in a political movement against the Tsarist autocracy. In 1879, her entire family moved to Lusk. The same year her father started building houses for the family in the nearby village of Kolodazhny. It was at this time that her uncle, Mikhailo Drahomanov, encouraged her to study Ukrainian folk songs, folk stories, and history, as well to peruse the Bible for its inspired poetry and eternal themes. She also was influenced by the well-known composer Mykola Lysenko, as well as the famous Ukrainian dramatist and poet Mikhailo Staritsky. At age 13, her first published poem, Lily of the Valley, appeared in the journal Zoria in Lviv. It was here that she first used her pseudonym, which was suggested by her mother because in the Russian Empire, publications in the Ukrainian language were forbidden. Ukrainka's first collection of poetry had to be published secretly in western Ukraine and snuck into Kyiv under her pseudonym. At this time, Ukrainka was well on her way of becoming a pianist, but due to tuberculosis of the bone, she did not attend any outside educational establishment. Writing was to be the main focus of her life. The poems and plays of Ukrainka are associated with her belief in her country's freedom and independence. Between 1895 and 1897, she became a member of the Literary and Artistic Society in Kyiv, which was banned in 1905 because of its relations with revolutionary activists. In 1888, when Ukrainka was 17, she and her brother organized a literary circle called Pleiada, which they founded to promote the development of Ukrainian literature and translation of foreign classics into Ukrainian. The organization was based on the French school of poesy, the Pleiade. The gatherings took place in different homes and were joined by Mykola Lysenko, P. Kosach, Kostiantin Mikhalchuk, Mikhailo Staritsky, and others. One of the works they translated was Nikolai Gogol's Evenings on a Farm near Diganka. Taras Shevchenko and Ivan Franko were the main inspiration of her early poetry, which was associated with the poet's loneliness, social isolation and adoration of the Ukrainian nation's freedom. Her first collection of poetry, Na Krylak Paisan, was published in 1893. Since Ukrainian publications were banned by the Russian Empire, this book was published in western Ukraine, which was part of Austria-Hungary at the time, and smuggled into Kiev. Ukrainka's illness made it necessary for her to travel to places where the climate was dry, and, as a result, she spent extended periods of time in Germany, Austria, Italy, Bulgaria, Crimea, the Caucasus, and Egypt. She loved experiencing other cultures, which was evident in many of her literary works, such as The Ancient History of Oriental Peoples, originally written for her younger siblings. The book was published in Lviv, and Ivan Franko was involved in its publication. It included her early poems, such as Seven Strings, The Starry Sky, Tears, Pearls, The Journey to the Sea, Crimean Memories, and In the Children's Circle. Ukrainka also wrote epic poems, prose dramas, several articles of literary criticism, and a number of socio-political essays. She was best known for her plays Boyarinya, of psychological tragedy centered on the Ukrainian family in the 17th century, which refers directly to Ukrainian history, and Lysova Piznya, the characters of which include mythological beings from Ukrainian folklore. In 1897, while being treated in Yalta, Ukrainka met Serhiy Merzinsky, an official from Minsk who was also receiving treatment for tuberculosis. The two fell in love, and her feelings for Merzinsky were responsible for her showing a different side of herself. Examples include, Your letters always smell of withered roses, To leave everything and fly to you, and I'd like to wind around you like ivy, which were unpublished in her lifetime. Merzinsky died with Ukrainka at his bedside on March 3, 1901. She wrote the entire dramatic poem Odazhima in one night at his deathbed. Ukrainka actively opposed Russian Tsarism and was a member of Ukrainian Marxist organizations. In 1902 she translated the Communist Manifesto into Ukrainian. She was briefly arrested in 1907 by Tsarist police and remained under surveillance thereafter. In 1907, Ukrainka married Lesya Ukvitka, a court official, who was an amateur ethnographer and musicologist. They settled first in Crimea, then moved to Georgia. Ukrainka died on August 1, 1913 at a health resort in Suramie, Georgia. Legacy. There are many monuments to Lesya Ukrainka in Ukraine and many other former Soviet republics, particularly in Kiev. There is a main monument at the boulevard that bears her name and a smaller monument in the Maryinsky Park. There is also a bust in Garodar Ryan of Azerbaijan, one of the main Kiev theaters. The Lesya Ukrainka National Academic Theatre of Russian Drama is colloquially referred to simply as Lesya Lesya Ukrainka Theatre. Under initiatives of local Ukrainian diasporas, there are several memorial societies and monuments to her throughout Canada and the United States, most notably a monument on the campus of the University of Saskatchewan in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. There is also a bust of Ukrainka in Sawyer's in New York State. Each summer since 1975, Ukrainians in Toronto gather at the Lesya Ukrainka Monument in High Park to celebrate her life and work. On May 28, 2007, the National Bank of Ukraine released a 200 hryvnia banknote depicting Lesya Ukrainka. According to image consultant Oleh Pokalchuk, Ukrainka's hairstyle inspired the over-the-head braid of Yulia Tymoshenko. English translations: The Babylonian Captivity, from 5 Russian plays, with one from the Ukrainian, Dutton, NY, 1916. From archive.org. In the Catacombs, translated by David Thoreau. The Forest Song, in a Different Light, a bilingual anthology of Ukrainian literature translated into English by Verlana Tkacz and Wanda Phipps, performed by Yara Arts Group, compiled and edited by Oleh Lachuk, Sribna Slovo Press, Lviv 2008. Theatrical adaptations of works, 1994. Yara's Forest Song, directed by Verlana Tkacz with Yara Arts Group at La Mama Experimental Theatre in New York and Les Kerbers Theatre in Lviv.